Okay, so we are the Muslim Lived Experience Network. We're kind of the brothers proportion of the kind of network. Um, we are a organization that kind of just is here to provide a space for Muslims, any Muslims. You don't have to really suffer from any mental health problems or challenges. It's just a space for kind of everyone and anyone because everyone's kind of got some sort of mental well-being, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's kind of just a bit wobbly. Um, but yeah, we're kind of bringing a space for brothers to kind of not understand, but have a kind of space because we've kind of seen that there's not really a space for brothers to kind of talk about this stuff. It's quite like it's becoming more of a spoken thing, but I guess we're just sisters. That's why in the network, I guess our sister stuff is a bit more prominent. More sisters are drawn to the network, whereas the sisters are constantly like, "Hello, we've got brothers that need your network. How do we get our brothers to access your network?" So I guess this is kind of something we're doing in response. This was kind of the idea to lay the groundwork to allow brothers to see us have these conversations, to know it's okay to have these conversations, and make it okay. Because I don't know about you guys, but when someone kind of has a self-disclosure, I feel more inclined to kind of speak myself. Also, I've realized one thing. I'm not big on whining when I'm talking. I wonder if it's recording like that because it's going to look really funny. It's just on Hamza and his reaction to me talking, actually.
Stop it, stop it.
It's,
Alhamdulillah, whatever way it's meant to be, it's meant to be.
you know what?
But
It's,
in
See what
addition to what
happens,
you,
innit? We'll see what happens, inshallah.
in addition to what you're just saying, yeah, this is for everybody. Because even though we're the Muslim Experience Network and predominantly we focus regarding mental health, you don't have to have gone through anything. Remember, our one of our key aims is to put people in spaces and positions of power, which is regarding prevention for themselves or assistance for your brother, sister, neighbor, community. So and unfortunately and inevitably, you will go through mentally challenging times throughout your life. And having a safe space here, which we is our intention to create, inshallah, is to be able to have that open, honest, and vulnerable conversation, which you should be able, inshallah, can take from here to in person, to into in your community, to in your family, and into your workspaces. So these are the steps, and these are the reasons why every and anybody is welcome. Just thought I'd throw that out there.
yeah, that was perfect.
Perfect. Right, so that's what's going on, and we attempt to have these conversations right every so often. They get rescheduled quite a bit, but
Small steps, we're getting there.
small steps we're getting there. And yeah, we're gonna discuss different topics, look at different things, talk about stuff that's been going on for us, and how that relates wider to this whole thing of mental health and well-being. And the hope is that starts to create some conversations and kind of grows from there, really.
No,
Sure.
no. So yeah, as you said, Osman, give us a title and give us the initial definition, please.
Right. So the title would be kind of what is reflection, why is it important, and how to actually do it. And I was going to say that I think before we do anything, we should preface the kind of conversation by talking about what reflection actually is for all of us and maybe how we do it. Maybe an example of it would be quite nice.
Yep, no.
Anyone want to start?
I'm happy to go.
Bismillah.
So yeah, Bismillah. Reflection for me. Um, so that, in my opinion, there's a thin line between reflection and dwelling.
Hmm.
Now having a negative past, dwelling was a component in my mental health deteriorating as I was standstill, stagnant, and stuck in a dark space, ruminating over negative thoughts. Whereas now I can reflect on my past. I can say Alhamdulillah for where I am now. And I can say Subhanallah because I'm able to look back and see some of the ayats and the things that I had to go through to get to where I am now.
Hmm.
In the moment, it is very difficult because, as I've said numerous times, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us weak, which is why we feel emotions and we feel like sometimes things are too much. But regarding reflection, it's very key, it's an important factor, and it's something that we need to be doing consistently and regularly. Um, I understand we all live a fast paced life, we all got our own bubble to an extent. Um, but these things are key, the same way you have aspirations and goals, whether that's gym, health, career, financial, the time and the energy needs to go into your reflections also, because it's a part of your self-development journey. And as I said prior, it's going to put you in a space of prevention or assistance, and it's also going to help you to understand yourself better. You know, you're not going to be the same person you are at 15 to 20, 20 to 25,
Mhm.
and so forth. Reflection helps you understand how much you've grown. Reflection understands like how far maybe more you want to go, you know. And reflection gives you time to understand yourself, to see where you're at on different aspects, your healing journey, where you're at mentally right now. Um, are you doing better now than you was last year? If not, what have been your difficulties and your trials and tribulations? On the Islamic side and Deen side, this will give you better understanding of things that you should be making dua for,
Mhm.
and things that you should be talking and expressing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when your head's on the mat. If you're not giving yourself time to reflect and take in what's actually going on with you now, what's currently happened with you, um, how are you gonna undo those layers of past hurt, whatever those are, and how are you gonna move forward regarding possible obstacles, you know? And by having that time to reflect, one will put you in in a position of power, and two, you'll be able to go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with a clear understanding of in your head of where
Mhm.
you're asking for shifa, where you're asking for guidance, where you're asking for direction, what you're asking for strength for. And that to me is why reflection is so key. Unfortunately, for myself personally, coming from a bad background, which was very fast paced, I didn't have any time to reflect. And prison is where I got that time to myself.
Mhm.
And subhanAllah, as Prophet Muhammad said, you know, there's peace and tranquility in Salah. And peace of mind was something that I was chasing for a long time as someone who's diagnosed paranoid schizophrenic and used to hear voices. And that's why I rarely make dua like this. And I always keep my head in sujood. And sometimes I'm there for a long time, to the point my son sometimes after the prayer, I'm like, Dad, why was your head down so long? And he doesn't get that. That's my space, you know. That's my space. That's where I clear my head. That's where I bear it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I explain this to him, and he gets it now. You know. Um, yeah, that's me on reflection.
Yeah, you want to go next?
Yeah, there were, do you know what? There's so many things that you mentioned, Hamza, that like, yeah, like I really, they just resonated for me. And I think, um, do you know what? I think you started at the very beginning and you said about this fine line that exists between dwelling versus kind of actually reflecting. And I think that's the thing for me, that with reflection, in terms of my own personal traits and how I've kind of historically been and how I've had to learn to almost reprogram some of my
Mm,
attributes. There's an angle, and then there's also what I do kind of in a professional context of working with other people and trying to help to shift the way in which they think. And it's not to kind of reject or dismiss things that happen in life, but it's about how you then choose to frame and package that and how you choose to replay that or not, right? And so
no.
I think for me there's two real kind of things about one, that it is imperative that we take ownership and we take accountability and we're able to reflect and we're able to see where we fall short and where we do wrong.
No.
As believers, that's upon us to do that, and just in a general sense, that's upon
Yeah.
us to do that. There's that angle, and there's the other angle of, I think it's really useful that a person is able to reflect, particularly when they're in times of difficulty, and particularly when they're in a space where everything feels overwhelming and it feels
Mm,
like it's too much, and they can't make a way out, they can't see a way out. is that realization of everything that's actually gone previous and all of the times previously that we've really been down in the, yeah,
Mm,
really, really, really been in the dark, but somehow, some way, we found a way out. Allah showed us a way out. And using that, like using the knowledge that you have overcame things and reflecting back over that to put where you are right now into a perspective. And so when you say reflection to me, I think reflection is all about gaining perspective. It's about being able to calibrate what's happening in our life and what we're doing about it. So you're always going to have the external factors. You're always going to
mm,
have an environment. You're always going to have other people, relationships, work, family, this, that, whatever. But when you reflect on how are all those things impacting, influencing you, but then what am I doing? And how am I coming to those things? And how am I choosing to engage? Because ultimately, is it that I'm in that space you mentioned where I'm dwelling,
mm,
and am I letting everything get the better of me? And I'm not saying that flippantly, like it's easy just to
mm.
flick the switch, but
Right.
can we take that and can we repurpose it into something more reflective where we're able to kind of look at a balance and say, okay, this thing maybe isn't where I want it to be. What can I do? Inshallah, what steps do I take? Or is it a thing where we say, this thing's in my life, but it doesn't work for me. Okay, let me get rid altogether if that's possible. And kind of, yeah, like reflection when done right and done to our best advantage, I think gives us the tools then to move forward. Because we talk about reflection as being something of looking back, and I think that helps us because we know where we've been in
Yeah.
order then to move forward. And so I guess, yeah, like that's what comes out of just that idea of reflection. And then when you the first thing you mentioned about dwelling, that was yeah.
And it's that saying. Sometimes you have to take two steps back in able to
Mm,
reevaluate your situation to move forward. You
yeah,
know,
yeah, 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 yeah.
and that there is looking back from a positive perspective rather than dwelling, staying there in a negative space and not allowing yourself to see or look forward, because then you become problem focused instead of solution driven.
Mm,
You know, reflection is, in my opinion, is it's a solution driven aspect, rather as dwelling it's problem focused because you're just stuck there with all the negative, which are the problems.
100%.
No, I really like how both of you kind of encapsulate the two things that I kind of grabbed when both of you were talking were kind of reflection is just, I guess, productive overthinking, productively overthinking, because everyone's going to overthink, but can you actually do something of use with all that overthinking? And I really like the part, yeah, was about gaining perspective as well, actually gaining perspective on maybe the same situation, maybe a situation that's been happening over and over and over again that you might feel stuck. But I kind of wanted to just maybe even define reflection a bit more because from my experience, kind of Hamza, you touched on this as well, is that many brothers are going at 100 miles per hour and they're not slowing down. And to reflect, you need to go at least minimum 10 miles per hour. And you can't really go from 1,000 miles per hour to five without your car flipping over.
Mm,
Um, and I feel like brothers don't have that space of the time to do that. And many times when they are given it, they kind of don't know what to do with that. And they just fall in that unproductive loop of thinking because they've never had to practice reflection. Because it is a skill. It's a skill that's
mm,
acquired and that has to be kind of refined. And to me, it's kind of like looking back and thinking about any events, experiences, situations that have happened in the past. Well, then Yahya, as you were saying again, thinking about them in terms of maybe not just what in a descriptive way, but actually in an evaluative way. What
mm,
was I thinking? Why did I think like that? How did I feel instead of what happened? And maybe projecting that onto the future. How does that change now what I'm going to do in future situations or circumstances or events? Um, and yeah, kind of a bit about how to do that.
mm,
Was that kind of like a thing in the future that you don't want to talk about? Should I just kind of slip into a bit how? Well, how I do it anyways is people always say there's those five questions of the what, the who, the where, when, whatever the rest of them are. Um, don't focus on the what happened, focus on the um, what was I thinking and how did it make me feel? That's kind of like the two main ones that I feel like really drive whenever I'm trying to reflect on my life.
Repeat that again for everybody else. I like that as well. I want to hear it once more, please. Sometimes they say to say things twice and it sticks.
Yeah, yeah.
The what? Say that again, Aid?
Just what I'm feeling, why I might be feeling that, and then what I was thinking, and why might I have been thinking that, and then how to apply those in future situations. And I think it's really important, like you were saying, Yahya, not just okay, that's what happened, but now how's that going to change what I'm doing in the future? How's that going to inform my the NHSME is going to slip out. I was going to say practice, not practice, but like just your life and how you go about your day. I think that's really important to kind of like really highlight because brothers don't know how to do that. They don't give themselves time to do that. When they say reflect, they're just like, oh, you mean think, reflect and think is the same thing.
But
Um,
you're right. It's definitely a skill because it took me a long time, you know. Um, read a few my reprogramming books, um, taking that time, seeing the benefits of what it done for me, and then putting it. I'm very much a regiment kind of guy. And subhanAllah is beneficial because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves routine. So we should be making intention action that our routine is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You know, and for me, making that time for my reflection is important because I know how beneficial it is for me. You know, and I feel like a lot of us, one, don't set aside the time for it, and two, it can be easy to replace that time at first when learning how to get into that regime with, I don't know, you might, let's say for example, even if you've got like a Google Calendar where you set it up in there, you put it in there for daily, so your alarm goes off for it. You've already got your phone in your hand now. You might scroll for that first 10 minutes, especially for the first few weeks, you know, just getting used to it, you know. But long term, let's say you get it, inshallah, it's just about catching yourself because it's natural to fall and natural to slip. So regarding a dwelling space. But as you're getting there, that's where you have to keep tricking yourself and catching yourself because it's almost like muscle memory. When you do something so often, your body and your mind will get used to it. And that's why when you're saying about training, and it's almost like a trick and a skill set, it is. And it's something that you need to be doing often because then when you do slip or you do fall, your backup will subconsciously just catch you. You won't have to always do it yourself. And that's something that I've done a lot for a long time for myself. So when I do feel myself falling or slipping into that space, I'm able to catch myself, you know. But that's something that you have to implement on. That's something that you have to work on, and that's something that you have to be consistent and strive for, you know. And that's another element of why reflection is so important.
I think something around that, like, and I think we've both mentioned it. We've all mentioned it in like previous conversations and stuff we've had about like how also when a person isn't in a healthy space and everything's a bit of a mess and everything's a bit dark, it's a thing where actually when you sit with those thoughts, that's that
Mm.
can be very dangerous. You can
Yeah.
be in a very, very, very kind of volatile and vulnerable point, right? And so that I think it does take time. And when I say time, it really is over a period of, as you grow and as you mature, that you understand that capacity of reflection more and you're able to kind of engage and almost entertain the negative thoughts as well. But
Mm.
again, in a way where you can kind of examine them and recalibrate them and pull them apart and put them back together and then move. Where I think for a lot of men, because we don't naturally let out so much
Mm.
vocally
Mm.
as the women.
Mm.
Uh, don't cancel me, you ever see this, right? But I think that's why we go into we take action, but we take the negative action a lot of the time when we're in that space, right? Because we don't have the coping mechanisms, we don't have the support network, we don't have the positive strategy, so
Yeah.
we go to the foolishness, right?
No. What I was going to say on that, and I think that's a good space to come in. And I think we should all touch on the grey area.
Mm,
The grey area being when building your resilience, and especially in that aspect of reflection. Because when reflecting, especially if it's troubling moments or triggering moments, you're naturally going to have emotions which will make you feel some sort of way. And as you said, a lot of the time for men, how we navigate through those emotions are quite negative. A lot of the time, the only emotion that a man is allowed to show or express is anger. And if he's not able to navigate through his emotions in a positive manner, a lot of the time, the result of particularly anger is violence.
Mm.
So I think resilience is something that we should touch on because resilience needs to be built in general, but even in the aspect of doing something so important as reflection, you can be triggered, emotions will rise. So how do you build that resilience in that space when it's a grey patch and you've done a reflection, you haven't dwelled, but that initial something that has popped up in part of your reflection has made you feel some sort of way. So for me, I built my resilience through my positive coping mechanisms, identifying them, knowing what ones to utilize and when to utilize those, and also my support systems. But more so, first, it was about my positive coping mechanisms because it's something that I could do on my own without anybody else's help, like a physical person, meaning that I didn't have to go to someone, I didn't have to call someone, I didn't have to do something. If I got triggered right this instant, it was something that I could have my list in my back pocket and say, this is what I need to do now. So for me, walking was one of them, training was another, salah, listening to Quran, podcasts, reading, steam and sauna, you know. These are just my things, you know. Like, and I always try to get people to think about a positive coping mechanism list and what that would look like. And in my opinion, it's in three parts. So there's a part that you naturally use on your day to day because your mood, emotion can change by the moment. We could finish this and get a call that affects us in a negative manner, you know. And then how are you going to use your resilience or your positive coping mechanisms to navigate how you felt through whatever news or information that you got that's made you feel a particular way. Then there's some of those that you can do that are free. So, for example, I've got no money, I can't go to the gym. I can train outside or I can train in my house. You know, you can go for a walk, you can go for a drive. I love architecture, art, fashion. There's exhibitions that are free. There are exhibitions that cost money. I like to travel. I can't do that as often as I would like, but those are things that I can work towards. But if I'm in a crisis now, it's something that I can't execute. So know your positive coping mechanisms and put them into sections, and then use them as your pick me up. Some of them will be part of your everyday routine. So when times get tough, they're not going to be able to much help for you because they're what you normally do to keep you afloat. You're going to need something else now, you know, and it's about being mindful and aware of that. And the only reason that you're able to identify that and even get to that space where you're going to know what positive coping mechanisms to use in certain times is by reflection.
Mm.
Because then you've looked at yourself more, you've asked yourself these questions more, and then you've been mindful when moving forward. I do gym 5 days a week, so if I've just got triggered by something, gym may help, but it may only get me to a certain point. I might have to do something else after that. You know, last few months have been tough. I might need to think about getting out of the country for a week or so, clear, recharge, refuel. You know, and that's just for example. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, it's about having, in my opinion, with resilience building and positive coping mechanisms, you should be doing 3 daily and then have your backup list. And your 3 daily should be one for your iman, one for your mental, and one for your physical. Meaning something more than FOD daily, something for your mental, which is either creative or mentally relaxing, and thirdly, some sort of something for the physical. Walk, run, swim, jog, halal fight, martial arts, whatever.
With the disclaimer there. Hello.
Yeah. But yeah.
I really like what you said as well about like kind of adapting kind of your positive mechanisms as well. Like, oh, if you can't afford the gym, like go outside, go on a walk, do something else. Like there's little caveats and ways you can do it. Because I feel like a lot of people are quite, I don't know if the word's absolutist or realistic, where they kind of just think in black and white. It's either no or yes, and they think no, I can't do that. Instead of, oh, let me try compromise and meet in the middle. I always say something's better than nothing. Um,
100%.
when you were talking as well, I was kind of thinking about like when you were kind of saying triggered. I was thinking about a lot of people or experiences I've had with a lot of brothers, and I feel like a lot of them, they can't really separate the being triggered and then feeling an emotion. They think that, oh, I'm feeling
Mm,
sad. Why am I feeling sad? Like, or why am I feeling angry? But they don't realize that actually, our Lord has programmed us to feel these things. It's okay to feel these things. It's when these things are
exactly.
kind of the dominant feeling and they're kind of in that not passenger, in the driver's seat of the car for a prolonged period of time and not letting anyone else take a turn. That's kind of when it's,
Yeah,
and I feel like a lot of brothers whenever that kind of emotion takes the front seat, it's a problem for them. But they don't realize that actually sometimes you have to sit with that. Sometimes it's allowed. Sometimes you actually need to feel a bit sad or a bit angry to kind of have that equilibrium of emotion. You can never really truly, they say, experience happiness unless you experience sadness. Because it's
no,
and how are you going to feel your high as it is if you don't feel the low as it is? Um, and I think that was just kind of important to mention because I feel like a lot of brothers, they just kind of like that. They're just very, I shouldn't feel none of this. No, this is wrong.
no, I
I
agree.
think, sorry, yeah, that like is a huge thing because the way you phrased it, Hamza, at the start, again, you mentioned like this gray area, right? When you find yourself in that gray area. And I think a big element of this is actually also being able to face up to the not so great side of life.
Mm,
Because the not so great side of life is there, right? And I think for me, this is a huge problem, to be honest with you, when, and I know I've talked about this before, but this whole thing of kind of mental health, there's a danger that when in order to combat a stigma which does exist and has existed, we go to a different space, which I don't think is productive or appropriate, particularly for us as Muslim men, where it's like this very kind of just very soft, soft response, which kind of means we end up feeling sorry for ourselves, or we kind of like it's okay to feel that like that vibe, right? Where it's like it is okay to not feel okay,
mm,
perfectly valid. And it's important back to our reflection to be able to acknowledge that and recognize it. And how not okay am I? Like, am I at a dangerous point? Or actually, does this make complete sense? Because guess what? I've had this go on at home, this went
mm,
on at work,
mm,
this thing happened yesterday, dot, 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 dot. Actually, let me rationalize that. Of course, I don't feel great. Now, let me bring in my coping mechanisms and strategies. Let me reassess the balance a little bit. Let me recalibrate. Let me put something on the other side of the scale so that
mm,
I'm not here, I'm up here again. And I do think we need to learn to be real.
yeah.
I think we can fall into a trap where we become kind of like a little bit idealistic and just a little bit kind of it's all a little bit floral and it's a little bit kind of
Delusional to an extent and
yeah,
naive.
yeah. And that's not this life.
Mm,
And that that's not how this life is gonna be. There's gonna be death.
exactly.
There's gonna be loss. There's
Yep,
going to be trials, there's going to be tribulations, there's going to be tests. But
yep,
how are we, how aware of those are we? How equipped are we for them? How realistic are we in how we assess ourselves in order to face those things? And then what is it we're going to do about it?
exactly.
And it's not easy.
What preparations are we making for the things that are inevitable?
Mm, mm, mm.
We welcome the good days,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but why aren't we prepped for the bad? I'm not saying like go into every day or every moment thinking it's bad, but just be prepped. Be
Mm,
prepped because unfortunately they will come as well. The
mm,
same way the good will come, and inshallah it's much more and it's outweighed in your favor. But at the same time, the bad will also come. There will be your trials, your tests, and prepare yourself in the best space for yourself and the best space for you to support somebody. And that takes reflection because you need to be prepped and prepared. And without doing that, you're not going to be in a good space and you will panic or feel overwhelmed or
mm,
anxiety or become depressed when you get into those spaces which are your tough times and you're unprepared and you don't know your positive coping mechanisms, you don't identify your support systems, and you're unaware of how to navigate with the emotion that you're feeling. And the same way that you can dwell and ruminate with your thoughts, in my opinion, regarding what you were just saying, the same thing can happen with the feelings.
Mm.
You know, it's as you said, it's okay to feel a certain way. We're made to feel all these things. But if they're negative, we shouldn't be stuck with them.
Yeah.
You know, and that's in my opinion, the same thing, ruminating or dwelling in an emotion that is not benefiting you. You know, yes, you have to go through a period or a process with whatever it is, grief because of death or whatnot. Of course, these things are
Mm.
natural, but don't let them consume you.
I just want to kind of like bring it back a bit to reflection. One thing I was going to ask a bit earlier was that we talked a lot about kind of reflecting, why you should reflect, why it's important, and maybe even a little bit about how to do it. Or what about the when to do it? Is it kind of
Sorry,
when is a good time to reflect? How often should you reflect? Is there good times? Is there bad times?
go on, yeah, you go first.
I think it's an ongoing thing. I think it's an ongoing, like for some people, they will need an approach that is far more um regimented in the sense of like sometimes I work with people and the version of events they've told themselves and the story they have about themselves is very negative. And so I'll set them some kind of task in order to bring them about to start recognize the blessing in their life, to start recognizing the good that they have, to start recognizing their traits. So for that person, it might be a thing of like they need to sit daily. They need to actually make this a bit of a semi-formal activity where you have a pen and paper and you actually but I think reflection again is not limited to that. Reflection is something that in a much wider, more holistic sense, constantly every decision you're weighing up, aren't you? But
Mm,
again, that doesn't mean we're like permanently indecisive, right? But you're taking in all the factors. I've got choices, I've got options. There are consequences. If I do this might happen. If I do this might happen. So I think reflection again is almost of types and dependent on kind of where you are and how much you know yourself and how much prior work you put in to get to know yourself, that will have some kind of limitation on the way in which you need to reflect. Um,
yeah, I agree.
that
I
makes
think
some
it's
sense.
subjective. I think it's subjective to the person, and where they're at. So yeah, you was near enough talking about me there. So I do it daily.
Mm,
You know, I'll reflect at the end of my evening on how my day went. You know, I'll compare my this week to last week,
mm,
and yeah, I set daily, weekly, quarterly, and yearly goals and things that I need to be done, and I try to reflect in the same aspect. You know, because one of the simplest words is balance.
mm,
One of the hardest things to execute is balance. You know, yeah, I think that unfortunately the scales are tipped in not the favor of a lot of things when we really ask ourselves, what are
Mm,
we? What's balanced right now? Family relationship, um, partner relationship,
mm,
career goals, financial aspects, gym, health, Dean, your self development journey, your healing, your time for reflection. Um, where are they at?
too
If
many,
you had to
too many
scale
things.
them all
and, and, and,
from
and
zero,
it's never going to be
if you had to
optimal.
scale them from 0 to 10, where would you fall? And if
Mm,
some of them are below 3, then that's not good. Especially if it's things that's generally going to benefit you, and especially if we're talking about Dean health and reflection, because those
mm.
three are mental, physical, and spiritual.
No, 100%.
Agree with that one as well. Now,
Osman, have you answered your own question?
Yeah, he
He
tried to
tries to get
flag
away.
there. Yeah, come on, give us the gems.
I personally believe that there's never a bad time to reflect. 'Cause some people argue, say, I would say that they're like, oh, when you've immediately gone through hardship, you shouldn't reflect. But I'm a big believer that as you're going through something, you will get a lot of, information, and that will allow you to reflect in one way. And then over time, gain more hindsight based on your experience and your life, and that will give you even more ability to reflect and kind of take those two steps back to look at everything. So I personally
Yeah.
think there's no wrong time to reflect, although me personally, what I do is uh, I do it mainly because, like you were saying, Hamza, there's too many plates to spin. I see things dropping down, to number three, number two, number one. Other things take priority.
Mhm.
And I'll be honest, sometimes I don't really like reflecting because I'm like, I feel like a pressure. I feel like a pressure to say something, to feel something that maybe I don't even want to feel. Um, so I kind of do it at big changes in my life. If I've
Okay.
moved, if I'm changing years in academic years, if I'm pursuing a new journey, job, um, I'm not married, but if I was to get married or like find someone to get married to, then it'd be like,
Shout out anyone watching this.
so for my marriage CV, just like, um, just whenever this kind of changed, and it kind of leads on to my next question about what tools um, kind of helped you reflect. I would say when I work with clients, kind of in the NHS, one thing that people kind of know of, or the most common one that's always recommended, is kind of pen and paper, traditional pen and paper to write. But I do believe that if you're kind of someone new to it, then maybe you need a bit more help. And you know what? You could use so many things out there. There's reflective journals that have kind of bits at the top if you kind of want to have a more holistic reflection on your whole life. There's some that you can just chuck into Chat GPT or some sort of AI. Not that I condone the use of AI because I'm not the biggest AI man, but if you wanted to and you use it, you can kind of be like, oh, give me some reflective logs based on A, B, C, D, and your specific life or specific situation, and then answer those. I'm not a big fan of the pen paper. I'm dyslexic. I don't like writing. It's a big pressure. Um, this might be quite telling on my age, but I just kind of whip out Snapchat and I'll just kind of record it as a video so I can look back as well and then reflect on that at that period
That's
of
good. I like that.
it's nice and it comes up like a year ago you kind of did that.
I've never had Snapchat. I've just been at my age, but I like that. I
I
like that. I like that.
Yeah, I know someone
Yeah.
who does it on like their computer. They'll kind of record it and then they'll look at it whenever they need to, but they'll record it as like a little video on their computer. But
And
it's
in this
kind
area, that's a time capsule. You can go. That'll
Hey,
be interesting for you to look at that. I don't know how often you do that, but that'll be interesting to watch that back at a certain age, or maybe with kids and your missus later in life, inshallah.
or maybe
That'll
not.
be, yeah. Like that. I like that. I do like that. I do like
it's a bit cringe sometimes. Like you look at 1 year ago and you're like,
that.
you were saying you're not the same person as you're 15 to 20 to 25, but even as
Yeah,
you're
cool.
1, 2, 3, 4, you change so much.
Mm,
So it's a bit cringy, but you know what? You have to kind of enjoy that cringe. The growth
Mm,
is in uncomfort. You have to be uncomfortable to grow. I'm a big believer of that.
no,
100%.
100%.
100%. No, I like that. I do give something different, and that I think would be much beneficial to the younger generation as well. Because then a lot of people may find it difficult a lot of people find it difficult to reflect in general. Never mind now, we're suggesting that they need to be reflecting often and potentially write this reflection down. It's like we're giving homework and assignments. Whereas most people have a smartphone and you can give up 90 seconds to 120 seconds and have a quick reflection on your phone every so often, and even make a reflection folder in your phone and just put all those videos in there.
Mhm.
You know, like me, I have a notes section on my phone where sometimes I may do reflection. As I said prior, anything I can say to anybody right on my phone, I've been said it with my head on the map. That's just me. That's just how I do things. And I actually like to write as well, pen and paper. So yeah, I've got reflections all over the place.
I
But
think there's something
I really
tangible
like
about
the
that
video
kind of
aspect.
paper, innit? Yeah. I think
Mm.
there's something very tangible about pen and paper, but I think, yeah, you know what? In a way, I accidentally do what you're saying because I can go back and look at what I've previously like posted historically
Mm.
on Instagram and etc. And again, that thing of like, subhanAllah, like the way time is passing,
Yeah.
it can be a little bit, when it comes to reflection, again, back to calibrating this, like I've been very guilty of, and it's a recurrent thing for me to have a lot of anxiety around where I am and where I ought to be and what I have or haven't accomplished,
No.
or what I have or haven't achieved. But again, it's about that version of events that I choose to tell myself about myself. Because like my exact situation right now, as an example, without giving the specifics, and I was having this conversation yesterday with a friend who's in a bit of a situation himself, right? And I was trying to show them this thing of perspective, and I was trying to show them this thing of how they're choosing to view their current situation and their current reality. And actually, I can describe them like this, or I can describe them like this, and you wouldn't
Mm,
think it's the same person, but both descriptions would be 100% true.
yeah,
But
no.
which one am I picking?
Mm,
And how when I put that together for myself, I think this whole thing of reflection as a skill, that over time, one of the aims within your reflection is that your perspective and your judgment becomes more balanced and becomes more accurate.
yeah.
Because when your judgment and your perspective are imbalanced and inaccurate, that's when you get spun out. And that's when you end up
Mm,
doing stupid things because you get yourself into a very, 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 very dark place. When you're
mashallah,
able to
Mubarak, well said.
say again,
Said, mashallah, Mubarak, well said.
because thank you, Jazakallah khair. Because when you're able to re-grab that perspective, like we said at the very beginning of the conversation, you suddenly have this sense of like, hang on, I faced things like this before, or I faced things worse than this before, or I was in
Yeah,
more of a hole than this before. So for me, again, it's always about like stepping back and being able to just gain a sense of where am I on my timeline, you know? And maybe I'm not where I want to be, but if that's the case, I need to take some action.
yeah. On not one thing I just want to add to that. I'd like to make us aware and inshallah other people. Reflection is about yourself.
Mm,
Don't allow others into it. That's more
mm,
pressure. And it just that just what you just said there just reminded me that. And that's what a lot of people do when it comes to reflection. They add comparisons.
mm,
Yeah, and if you're gonna do any sort of comparison, it should be UVU yesterday, UVU last month, UVU last year.
mm,
There shouldn't be anybody else in that, because remember, our path and our journey is for us and was specifically written for us. Yeah, and there's no traffic in your lane.
I like that.
You can have your foot down, you can pull over, you can stop, you might have to get out for a minute, and you can reverse. That's all part of your reflection, you
Mm,
know, and it's all your journey. Don't let anybody else in it because that's traffic that you don't need,
mm,
and it's noise.
no, 100%.
I forget you brothers are like motivational speakers. I sit here and I'm like, yeah, come on, let's go. Let's go.
I'm not. I'm definitely not a motivational speaker.
You're very
Trying to motivate
motivational.
myself, Like,
Yeah, yeah, man. Yeah, I speak to myself as well as others, man. I'm definitely not a motivational speaker, man.
I think that kind of spoke a lot to me as well because that's something I do a lot. Like I will reflect very hard, but just on another situation that's regarding someone else. So my perspectives on another situation, um, rather than myself. So that one kind of was like, yeah, I was like, you know what? He's right, actually. Take that one, in your stride,
No,
actually.
but I love that, and this is the beauty and the blessing of the space that we're in,
yeah,
and and
100%.
and and this is the beauty of the blessing of what we're trying to show from this perspective of brother space. It is that one is it's a safe space to be open, honest, and vulnerable, and two, we're switching the dynamics of what are normally identified as weaknesses as strength because you was
Mm,
vulnerable there and showed something that could be considered a fault, but you just made it a strength by owning it, sharing it, and then acknowledging it. So it's something now that's back on your radar, even though it was before, but now you can think about it a bit more. And what's the solution to me changing that dynamic?
Mm. There you go, real life reflection.
There you
100%, 100%. And
no.
Because if we just like kind of schedule that up.
but you know what? What my hope from all of this is again, that genuinely, like for whoever does kind of come across it, that again, it enables them to feel like they're able to start having these conversations with the people that they need to have the conversations with, right? Whether it includes us or not, whether they get involved with us in some way, shape, or form or not. It is about that thing of like, actually, these are the conversations that in general we need to be having, but
Mm.
particularly as men, particularly as Muslims, is the conversations that I don't think we really are having, if we're honest. And then in terms of like a lot of what is out there, actually, I won't comment on any of that. We'll just continue with what we're doing, right? So yeah, I think these conversations they are valuable. Um, and just you get insight from each other, right?
Exactly. Each one teach one.
Mm,
Share, grow, you know, support.
100%.
All right, brothers, you said 45 minutes.
We
Yeah,
did.
that seemed like a nice, yeah.
Yeah. It seemed like a very quick 45 minutes, but
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, it was flowing. Alhamdulillah.